Andy.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I just have a quick couple things to go over. This is our second to the last coffee counselor chat. Our next one is April 11th, and then all the sessions will be done. If you are wanting to take this course for credit, you have to view all the videos, and you can find them in the counselor coffee chat on the hub. If you're not sure how to do that, just email me and I'll walk you through it. And we want you to have the videos viewed and your paper turned in by May 5th. And then you'll have about a week or two to register for credit after that. So if you have any questions, email me and I'll walk you through it. But otherwise, we'll let the Grand Forks people take it away.
All right, thank you, Mandy. And welcome to all joining us for this coffee talk today. We are the tri-chairs at the Grand Forks Public Schools K-12 School Counseling Program. I'm Melissa Michelson at the high school level. Blake Neubauer is staying muted.
Yep, he's also the tri-chair for the middle school level.
Hi, I'm Kim Novacek, and I'm the elementary tri-chair here in Grand Forks.
All right, today's topic will introduce you to the work that we have done as a district to build a comprehensive K-12 school counseling program. So I am going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right, welcome everyone.
All right, so what we're going to be here talking about today is we are focusing on our scope and sequence, but what we're really going to be talking about too is all the work and the journey that went into building a comprehensive K-12 school counseling program and the work we've done with Hatching Results and as a district. And really how we did that was by focusing on our four main components through our ASCA national model. So what we did essentially was define what we wanted from our program using our professional and our student standards. A lot of management on trying to find time to plan for our program and really find our focus on where we wanted to go while we were working with Hatching Results. Assess was a big one, making sure that we weren't just doing things randomly or what felt right, really looking at what the data tells us and trying to be intentional with our use of data while building our program. And then going out and figuring what's the best way to deliver this through our direct and indirect student services. As it goes with our scope and sequence, we did this through looking at our ASCA mindsets and behaviors. We want to make sure that while we were looking and making those plans, we want to make sure that it aligned, right? Tying it all back to our national organization, our national model. We did that through looking at our school data. When I say through K-12, whether that be we use platforms like Panorama. For some, it's the Youth Behavior Risk Survey, REACH surveys, looking at our school data profile, looking at all the demographics, how each school, elementary, middle, and high school, all the different things that kind of go into it, and then using that to kind of start developing, okay, what is the data telling us, and then starting to develop lessons based off those identified needs. And as shown in the next slide, that can look interesting.
All right, yeah, so just as Blake said, it can look interesting. We know there are lots of great things happening all the time within our buildings and within our districts that we work at. We also know that, similarly with our comprehensive programs that we have in place, it's really important that we take the time to align the arrows. to make sure that we're striving to do what is best for our district and thinking about not only our comprehensive program, but looking at our strategic plan and goals within the district and our program. We want to make sure that we use the managed component of our program to ensure that this is happening. Okay, so in having a comprehensive school counseling program in place, the arrows flow in the same direction with intentionality. And we know this is something that takes time, right? It takes a lot of input from people and looking at all the different things that we do throughout the day, throughout the week, the month, and just calendaring within our year. We know that there are a lot of things happening, a lot of really great things. But again, when we can align our arrows, that's when the best and the most intentional things happen for our students and their families and our programming.
After we've taken a look at all of this, we thought we would just take some time today through this coffee chat to talk about you need to know where you've been. So this is kind of a nice look at, and for us as a district to consider all of the good work that has happened, and just really being aware and cognizant of our arrows were going in a lot of different directions, and it took a lot of intentionality to start getting them flowing in the same direction. As you build a comprehensive program and as you're thinking about the programming in each of your schools, there's a lot of good things happening already, and it is finding the data sources and the pieces to show what those pieces are. So just taking you through a little bit of history of where we've been in our district to where we are right now. Just a little bit about the onboarding. We kind of thought we would start at the beginning, which we had good work happening in the years before we started working with hatching, and we are in our third year right now, being able to have hatching work specifically with us in our district. And as we go through this slide and just talk about just some of the points on this particular piece, you will see from the process to our program has accelerated. We just really hope that you find as much excitement as we have in getting to be on our journey and to be where we're at right now. So our process started about 12 to 13 years ago. So it's not a fast process by any means, but very rewarding as you're moving through. So 12 to 13 years ago, we have 24 counselors in Grand Forks, and we started a curriculum review time that we have been fortunate to never have moved out of. So usually curriculum review gets to have a number of years that is intentional for each program area. And because of the needs of our program and that we've demonstrated through data and through our consistent work, we've been able to stay in that process now for our 12th or 13th year. So it started with two counselors who kind of picked up the work and started a kind of a grassroots kind of starting point for all of the counselors when we started this curriculum process review. And that was getting us all so that we would be working on common language through using the ASCA 3.0 model at that point book. So our verbiage across the district started to become the same and started to become how programs work. Like if you just think of different programs in your building, like a math program, have similar verbiage across grade levels. So do counselors in Grand Forks. So it moved from that, and then as the years went on, then that changed from a 2-person piece to a tri-chair piece. And again, in work with our district office, because we've had just a lot of support from the district office and just check-ins with them, and just a lot of open communication and support through that. And they asked if we could kind of set our grouping up like they have principals supervising us in our district. So they have an elementary, middle, and high school principal as assigned as their curriculum area to counseling. So we now, for the last about 6 years, have had a tri-chair position. So tri-chairs in our district are in school building, full-time working counselors, and then we're just across the different areas. So like today we have Kim's at elementary, Blake's at middle school, and I'm the high school representative tri-chair person for our district and through our process right now. With that, there is a lot of strategic planning. So, right, we use the same terminology that other departments use and that the district uses. That's important to keep programs moving forward. So we do strategic planning in the summer. We work through that, and through the North Dakota Behavioral Grant is how we were able in Grand Forks to get connected and to be able to fund hatching results within our district. And that happened 3 years ago with that North Dakota Behavioral Grant. And that grant too was kind of seeked out by one of our own within our program, and she was tri-chairing at the time, and brought that to the district level about what about using some of this grant funding to get specific professional development for school counselors? Because by that time we had been in the process for 9 or 10 years, and while we within ourselves can provide great professional development for each other, we were at a point that we knew we just needed more. Like, we know how to do these things, but we need more. And we were super fortunate to get connected with Hatching Results, and they really are more. And that moves us to how our program accelerated. Like, we were in a spot where we had good stuff happening, and our arrows were like not scattered, they were getting aligned. But then hatching came in and just really, well, first they do a phenomenal job of creating relationship and rapport with the districts that they work with. And because we all know we are just kind of post-COVID, at the beginning, it was really only virtual that was an option. And then just because of the unique way that we're able to work with Hatching and how they are willing to work with districts to do what works for them, we have kept our trainings with them as virtual. So with that also, 2 of the last 3 years that we've worked with Hatching Results, we've been able to go out, like, so the tri-chairs went out in 2020 to San Diego, where they have a national school counselor leadership conference. And the next year in 21, we were able to join that virtually. That's how that conference was offered. 22, we unfortunately were not able to go, but then again in 23, just this past February, Kim and myself, and then one of our assistant superintendents, our high school curriculum supervisor, and our mental health coordinator, the 5 of us were able to travel out to San Diego together and get to meet our 6 trainers that we've had over the 3 years that we worked with Hatching, and got to meet them face to face, get pictures with them, and go to sessions that they presented in person and that other districts that have worked with Hatching also present at. So these are just like the pieces that are opened up as we're looking outside of just ourselves and what we have to offer. And and getting to meet people that we had worked virtually with for like a whole school year and just made like a lot of connections with, and getting to see them in person. It was like we'd gone to college together, and we're just like, oh, like we're just seeing each other again. It was just like the warm welcome, and what Hatching really does bring to the trainings is really that piece, which I frame all of that up like that because through the 3 years that we worked with Hatching, there have had to be places where the trainers, in a super respectful but direct way, got us to move from where we were to get us to that acceleration point where we're like, okay, like this is where we are. And they were so encouraging of like, you have good work happening. Have you thought about this? And then the thought about this piece, like we'd get to chew on and wrestle with, like within our levels, and come back and get feedback about some different things we were thinking about. So really just was that like outside piece that could come in and help move a group forward, like a group of 24 people who a lot of them had been together a lot of the 12 years, and many of them that we have just added along the way, and just trying to keep everyone on that program mentality and like, let's all be together and be moving forward with that. Those are the big pieces that helped us a lot with our work as a program as we have been moving forward. So we have enjoyed where we've been, and we're looking forward to what's still coming. And what's still coming is our next piece.
Okay, so as Melissa said, it's been quite a journey. It's been a very exciting journey, and where we're heading now. So we're going to take some time to look at the curriculum carousel and the crosswalking tool that we used in order to work on our vertical alignment. We're going to take some time to look at the portrait of a graduate, what that looks like at the secondary level. And also a big piece in just doing this work together is so that we know what happens from level to level. We know what skills are being taught, what's being looked at, and what some of those goals are for kids, so that when they leave elementary school, what skills do they have so that they're prepared for middle school and high school and so on. And then a big piece of that is taking the time to really dig into and look at the ASCA mindsets and behaviors, and to make sure that we are closing the gaps, to make sure that we are addressing all the needs of the students, and to make sure that from grade level to grade level, we aren't missing out on important skills that students need to know. So we'll go ahead and dig into the crosswalk.
All right, before we go into the crosswalk, do we want to talk and share a bit at this point, kind of the pieces that went into this crosswalk, or do that as we are moving through the crosswalk?
Maybe moving through might be helpful for me.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and this was, I'm going to go back to the journey. Elementary, a few years ago, we adopted a curriculum, and we were really excited to hang our hat on that curriculum and finally have some tier 1 instruction that was research-based. And so we went full force with that. We were really excited about it. And after a few years of teaching that tier 1 instruction, we finally came together as a group and said, well, what lessons are you doing? And which lessons are you doing? Because we want to make sure that what we're doing is equitable across the board. And so at that time, we made a simple Excel spreadsheet, and by school or counselor, we checked what lessons we were teaching. And we were definitely seeing some common themes, but we weren't moving past that. We weren't taking the time to be intentional, look at the lessons that were being taught, and making sure that each student, regardless of the campus they're at, was receiving the same instruction and skills. And so when we started working with Hatching, this was something they created for us to use. It's a tool that they have. And basically, we took the time, and as elementary counselors, we went grade by grade, and we brainstormed up a list of what topics do we think are really important, and what do we think students need to know. And based on that list, you could see what people were really passionate about too. And that's another piece of aligning the arrows, is we all have different topics that we're really passionate about and we enjoy teaching, but making sure that once again, we're being equitable in the work that we're doing. And so after we identified those topics that we thought should be taught, then we went grade by grade and we actually posted the lessons that we were teaching. And then we kind of took a pause there. And as you can see in the document, we were getting feedback from Whitney at this time, just asking us questions and giving feedback. And we got to the point where, because the lessons had been franchised for us for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade with the curriculum we were using, that we kind of stopped posting all of it because it was the same from school to school. And then the lessons that were being taught, the units that were being taught, it was all consistent. It was a really good feeling. Where my group, elementary, where we kind of started to dig in our heels, was K2, we were using a different curriculum. And because we weren't really sure if we were going to move forward and use the same curriculum K5, we felt like we could just kind of take a pause. And with a little encouragement, we were able to move forward. And actually we met out at the district office and we each came prepared with the cards labeled with the units and the lessons that we were teaching. And from there, we scattered out our cards and we looked for common themes. And again, we noticed that there were definite lessons that were happening from grade to grade and school to school, but also topics that people were really passionate about. And based on the data that we were looking at, because you always want to look at your data and make sure again that you're addressing any gaps that you might have. And we came up with our 10 lessons to franchise for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And we were really excited about this. We had finally, moved forward with it. It wasn't too shortly after that I got a phone call that we were going to be purchasing the rest of the curriculum for our K2 students. And so, with a little push, we were able to move forward with that. So that was really great. And because we were able to go through that process together, then we felt more confident about, okay, so when we get a new curriculum, same curriculum as our grades 3, 4, and 5, we're really going to be able to sit down and figure out the scope and sequence. And so what we're working on now is taking the lessons again for 3, 4, 5, and really taking the time to be intentional and look within our Tier 1 action plan of which mindsets and behaviors are really being taught. And going back through to make sure that, again, we don't have any gaps and we're not missing anything that the kids need to be learning. What we have learned from this too is that we're missing the career component. That's been absent for our K5 students. And for a long time, we focused on that we were teaching the soft skills. And so now what we're continuing to do is we're continuing to figure out our K2 scope and sequence because we have a new curriculum. We're also taking into consideration that we need to be looking at the career unit for students in grades K through 5 and making sure that we are addressing the academic, the social, and the career pieces of our program, because we definitely don't want to have kids not have that exposure, because we know that that's really important for their self-development. And so that's been our elementary story about where we started, the little nudge that we needed to keep going in the right direction, and just the amazing feeling that we had as a group that, with 8 counselors plus, we were able to come to an agreement and really franchise our lessons.
All right, and I will start talking about what it kind of looked like at the middle school level. And for us, when we originally started this process, what we come to find out is that we did have similarities at certain middle schools with different pieces like career conferences, high school registration, these different pieces that weren't necessarily franchised lessons, but like we were doing the same things, but in a different way. And this process really forced us to sit down and actually look at what everyone's doing, because we kind of did that thing in our workout sessions where it was like, yeah, well, we do a bit with career in this lesson. Yeah, us too, but like, we were kind of shying away from the conversation of like, well, what's actually being taught and what does it look like? What I liked about this was Hatching kind of forced us to have those conversations and share. And I don't know why we were so hesitant to share our lessons to begin with, but just as a middle school level, we were. So one of our processes while we were filling this out, we had them all dump in both Valley, Schrader South, and Twining middle schools. We wanted everyone to put whatever classroom lessons they have on here for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And we just want to see what all is being taught. And while we did this, we took it a step further, and we also shared all of our PowerPoints for all these lessons in a Google folder. So we can actually see what's actually, just because Schrader is doing a trusted adult lesson, that doesn't mean Valley's is gonna look the same. So we wanted to see what different bits and pieces were you doing, with the goal of trying to find the underlying themes of, okay, what do we got going on? And then using our mindsets and behaviors, looking at the data and, hey, what's with our demographics, what are we seeing? And what do we want our lessons to do? For an example, we take the youth risk behavior survey. We do that every 2 years, I believe, and we found that our suicidal ideation numbers are really high. And going off of that data, we knew that, okay, this is something important. This is something we want to improve on. So we crafted a how to help a friend lesson for 8th grade to start the year, so that we can kind of walk through, and then we made it so it's franchise, it's uniform. So we typically see a lot of different transfers, as I'm sure a lot of people here do, of if you are in a bigger district where some students might be in our borders, but they'll shift over and they'll get a completely different lesson. Hatching really forced the conversation of, well, it should be equitable. You should be getting the same service on a tier 1 level. So we crafted, and we were able to put together a consistent uniform lesson on how to help a friend, no matter what middle school you go to. And then there was different things we looked at where we used the platform Panorama, where it's a different SEL service where they took a survey and it gave us all this data on how students are kind of viewing themselves. And one thing we noticed as a consistent low point was student self-efficacy. That was consistent among all the middle schools. So, okay, what can we do about that and how does that look? And then we did that. We actually tied it to an advisory council student representative as well. And we crafted a how to be a successful student lesson, going off of that and all the different pieces that we feel middle school students can do to kind of improve that self-efficacy, and making sure it was as research backed as we could. So while we were doing this, and this, I'm making it sound like we kind of just sat down and we knocked this out, and it wasn't. It didn't work that way. It took a little bit of time. So we started with one lesson, and we actually, on top of this, one of the things Hatching worked with us, because we got through this part pretty smoothly, but it was we weren't really testing to see if our lessons were working. It was, hey, this is really good stuff, and we sent it out. But one of the things that Hatching does while we're doing the scope and sequence is they talk about the importance of the pre and post test, that assessing piece. So we also, as middle school level, went through and created pre and post test Google Forms for all these lessons, so that we could see in hopefully real time, hey, is this lesson getting across what we want it to? And then we learned that some things that we really thought we did a good job on, we did not, it didn't hit. And then things that we thought, hey, there's no way that's going to stick, and it did. So that process of working through the kinks and really sticking with it, that was something. But through this, you can kind of see on the highlighted sections, these were all the things that we found were common themes that we could track back to specific forms of data, different surveys that we were running, different need assessments that we wanted to run consistently. One of the things with middle school that we also kind of found was that autonomy. We had some students, we have some different personalities. It was, hey, well, our data doesn't look the same as your data. And we wanted to address this. We did ask Hatching about it. They were very open about, as long as it's franchised, but at the same time, you can have a lesson that is specific to your needs. So as a middle school level, we decided our Q4 lesson at the end of the year, that's going to be based off your specific middle school data. So we did things, and that's where we kind of looked at the piece of, all right, when we talk about a K-12 comprehensive school counseling lesson, well, for us, it's all right, what do we want them to know for high school? So speaking for Schrader, one of the things that we did is we have an academic lesson that is focused on scholarships. So we break up students into scholarship panels. We run through all this, hey, this is what scholarships are. And we want them to be ready so that when they come in freshman year, that really important freshman GPA, they kind of already have an idea of why this is so important and what things to look for. So we're trying to make it easy so when they do move on to Melissa, that they're ready to go as best they can. With that, we also found, I'm making it sound like middle school really has it together. No, we found out our big miss there was our career component. When we listed all of our lessons, it was really mental health based, which is great. We're in that field, but we also do so much more than that. And that's what our national model tells us, right? So through this process, we were trying to figure out how can we create a career lesson. That was a weak area, a growth area is probably what I should say, a growth area for all middle schools. So this process, we had level meetings with just the middle school counselors, and we focused on reaching out to our career coordinator and started to try to tie in, hey, what are you doing in elementary? What are you doing in high school? And what's something that we can do to try to help bolster that a little bit in middle school. And through that, we're still in the building stages of that, but we're starting to use the platform. Are you ready? We're looking at different, they have a bunch of different interactive tools that you can use on that, but that's something that they're going to see consistently when they go to the high school level as well. So we're in the process of building that. So right now, as a middle school level, we have a consistent uniform Q1, 2, and 3 lessons, and we go through the data and just kind of adjust, hey, how's this looking for your school? Is this question landing the way that it should on the pre and post? And if it's not, we bring it back to the table as a group and adjust it as need be. So I'd say one of the great things about Hatching is, yes, the direct feedback, but it's also that ability to have that work time. Because I think there's so many times that we have where it's like, oh my God, I would love to run a group, or oh my God, I would love to get this going. And then life happens and it's 3:30 and you don't know what happened to your lunch. Like there's all these different things happening. So that allowing and then really coming together as a middle school level. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but just having that support and being able to ask questions and challenge us and push us, that really shaped the middle school level as far as building a franchise curriculum and scope and sequence.
All right, Kim and Blake did a great job about planning through the educational years with the end in mind. For Kim, she talked about when my kids go to middle school, what do they need to know when they get there? Blake talked about when they come from elementary, what do they have? What can we build on? What do they need to know when they come to the high school? At high school, it's also important that we look at it and we consider, like, what do these kids come in with? What did they do in elementary and middle school? So with our high school crosswalk, you can see ours is right here. So we have 3 high schools in Grand Forks, and a lot of the information that we are able to present to our students at high school do center around our career units and what is happening in there. And we have a career coordinator, educator, like Blake was talking about, who moves through all of our campuses in Grand Forks. So when we talk about franchising our lessons between the high schools, we already had a start on that because the time right now, the way that our schedules are built is that the time that we get into classrooms are for those career units, one time in 9th grade, 10th grade, and again in 11th grade. Additionally, and then with that is franchising between the 3 high schools, because the same person is kind of the main facilitator of that. And then the counselor whose either class it is or whose portfolio assignment it is presents alongside of that person as well. Additionally, in the high schools, we also get into classrooms during 10th grade when in health class, when they are talking about the mental health portion of the health class, and we are able to go in and connect with our students and just present, again, franchised work between the high schools that we have pre and post tests for, so we can look at that data about how are these lessons falling for these students, and what can we take back and change and improve or move through. And it was really a piece that needed to happen, and we just needed somebody from outside of the 9 of us high school counselors in Grand Forks to get down on paper on this form about what is it, like, what do we do in those? Because right, we sit on the table and we're like, yeah, we all know that we do the same things in each of the grade levels, but like, what is it that we do, so that if somebody doesn't know what you're doing, you have it down. So as you can see here, we took time and broke out these different pieces through our 9th through 11th grade. And then you can see in 12th grade, the pieces that we do are more through definitely through conferencing that we also do in 9th grade and 10th grade, but then also have a classroom portion with that as well. Like you've heard all along for each of our levels, definitely lots of discussion happens through this, sometimes uncomfortable discussion, and getting to a point of working together and being okay that we can be uncomfortable and we can still all respect each other, but things are going to be uncomfortable sometimes, and to move forward, we just have to move through the uncomfortableness. Like that's a big piece that we've learned going through this process, and still being in this process of every day and every month and every year, just going forward. There are going to be tough conversations that need to happen, and there can be like healthy compromise that happens through that as well. It's also just such a great working experience, being able to be around and watch and be part of the insights that are happening as people are working through these pieces, and just seeing the growth in yourself and watching growth in other people and having people talk about those things. A slide that we don't have on here, but we've talked a lot about, is looking at data. And just as like as a general like personality character of mine, like I love numbers. I didn't really know, like I could think that I thought I might like data, but then as I work along peers and colleagues who become friends over time, I mean, it's like, it's okay. It's cool to think that data is kind of fun. And then having, people like in our district, I think we're just super fortunate because there are so many of us in a lot of schools across North Dakota. We completely understand that there's probably one counselor. So like it is very important to find somebody who like kind of has the same goals as you have about like building a program, or a mentor that has kind of wants to work through that or has been there and done that to work through that. Because over spring break, I got pretty excited about putting together some data because my evaluation was coming up after spring break, and I sent it out to my tri-chairs and our mental health coordinator because she used to be a colleague of ours as well. And right, like all they need to do, like thumbs up or like have some encouraging something to be, I was like, like, of course, my data people. And like, I'm a data person, like I can do this. And that too was enhanced and fostered through our work with Hatching, because that's a piece of what they also offer. Like a service that they offer is like, you have all this data. How are you going to show this to other people so that they can get excited about what's happening in your program? So they do work with, and actually right before spring break, PLC time that we had with Hatching, we did again revisit putting graphs together and using percentage or calculator differences percentages. What is it? Somebody help me. Calculator
percent change.
Thank you. Calculator percent change. And then you can put really cool call outs on your data and pop them up there. So so for sure, there is definitely a camaraderie as you spend time and you work through like even this crosswalk activity, because this is not, like we've all alluded to, is not something that happens in a vacuum or happens like, okay, we're going to take a 4-hour PLC and we are going to crosswalk. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to start talking about crosswalk in a 4-hour PLC. Then we're going to do some work, and we're going to come back and do some more work with the work we've done. And it builds on each other. And then this is a product that as a district you can have put together, and then knowing that you're going to go back and continually evaluate and look at where things are at, and that's going to be safe and it's going to be okay to do that. So there are just so many pieces as we work through scoping and sequencing that go along with those pieces as you're putting data together to really give validation to the work that we know we all do every day with our students. All right, anything anybody would like to add on this?
I think I would just kind of reiterate what Blake and Melissa said too. They did touch on the data piece and using pre and post tests to measure growth and to make sure that your objectives are being met and students are learning those skills. And that's something we've worked at with elementary too. We've even gotten really picky with our pre-post test questions and have really analyzed the questions, and now are looking more into digging into the data. We picked 2 grade levels and 2 specific pre-post tests so that we can look at that data not only as an individual school but across our district. And last year, just kind of connecting with what was said too, of just really coming together as a group to work together and to move forward. Last year's in elementary, we were able, with the programming work that was done during our PLC time and working on the scope and sequence, at the end of the year, we typically would make a flashlight presentation or a 1-pager. And as an elementary group, we worked together to come up with one flashlight presentation. And so again, with 8 counselors coming together, looking at the data and looking at the district strategic plans and just the amount of work we accomplished last year, I believe that without additional outside support, we wouldn't have gotten there as fast. And so to be able to have somebody provide that guidance and let us know, what steps could be taken so that we could improve the program, not just for ourselves, but for our students, was really important. And when we can take the time level by level to look at this scope and sequence and look at the crosswalk activity that's been done, it's a really great feeling to be able to know, okay, this is what middle school is covering, and this is what high school is covering as well, and making sure that the needs of the students are being met. So.
One thing I want to add too, not to keep this going, but it just made me think of it when you were saying just being able to see what the different levels are doing. Something that hatching also does prior to this is it gives you the opportunity where they have you label, are you elementary, middle, or high school, and then they will intentionally not pair you with someone at your level 2 so that you can actually have a conversation. We're a district of 24 counselors. I know of them, but I don't know what they, what they're doing, whatever. But it kind of challenges, they pose a couple questions, they'll have you look at your scope and say, hey, where are you guys at? And then you get a pair and you get to see what a different lens is from a different level is. And that's a very interesting piece that we get to see too, because I rarely, I don't think when I'm making these lessons and we're talking as a middle school group, I'm not going, like, oh, I wonder what an elementary counselor would look at this and see. So that I think the one of the bigger takeaways is just the collaboration that comes out of this, just from not just working with hatching, but working with elementary school, working with high school. It's a lot easier to go to them and just kind of have some of that constructive conversation of, hey, this is what we're doing, what do you think about this, and then tweaking that to try to make it so that it aligns more with them too. So collaboration is kind of what stuck out to what you were saying, Kim.
Mhm. All right, a final piece of this slide, we have one more piece to show. This is our portrait of a graduate. This work comes out of Grand Forks Central, where I work. And this was, well, look at that. It thinks that it doesn't want me to show you the portrait of a graduate. Never fear. I only have 35,000 tabs up here because one will be it.
I'm trying to be on my best behavior. You know how hard it was to not make fun of the tabs?
I believe it. That's why I just
Same.
said it to everyone. Like, there's a lot up here, but look, when your link doesn't work, look at this. Just like that. Many tabs open, positive thing. So this work came out of stakeholder feedback to our school, came out of student feedback to our school, came out of staff feedback to our school, and then was pared down. So this again was a big project and a process to get to this piece, but now this is our portrait of a graduate for Grand Forks Central High School that we have hanging in our building for our students to see, that we have attached with different mailings that go out to parents, so that this is just becoming a piece of what we do and what happens at our building. And then we also, when we go back to crosswalking, we also tie what we do as fitting into our portrait of an entire graduate when we have them graduating out of our building. All right.
All right, and the last slide we wanted to leave you on was this. We thought this was really fitting. Just looking at what we think success looks like, that straight shot. It's going to be smooth sailing, but in reality, it looks a lot like that on the right. And we've talked a lot about the work that we put in as a district and highlighting all this stuff. it wasn't built overnight. And once you think you're done, like, oh, I got this lesson, we got the lesson plan done, good. Walk away from it. No, you're still going to be going back to it. You look at the pre and post test data and you see, never mind, I missed completely. Let's go back to it and relook at it. So if you're going through that process and you're thinking about, hey, how can we work on our program? I mean, keep this visual in mind that it's going to be something that you work on. It's okay to have missteps and to have to retweak things, because that is something that we're all doing, especially as a district, and even working with hatching for as long as we have, still a lot of work left to be done, and celebrate your success. And I say that's another little piece from this too. Like when we did our first pre and post test lesson, and we got it all for National School Counselors Week, we printed it off, some of the results of the gains that were made in that class. We put it all over the teachers lounge. Like, it's okay to, I'm a typically reserved person. That's not really something I want to do, but due to the hatching saying, hey, get the word out about your program and share it. We did that as a school here, and just those baby steps, right? It's okay to celebrate things like that, because there's a lot of good work left to be done. So I think that's where, Melissa, Kim, I think that's where we want to leave you all today.
All right, so thank you all for joining us today. I see there are some people who are joining us live. If we have a few minutes before it gets to 4:30, if anyone has any questions, we could take those right now.
Sounds like a quiet group.
Yeah, and I think that hearing none, we just, again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for having Mandy for having these coffee talks. And yeah, and inviting us, Angie, inviting us to come alongside of hatching and be able to tell counselors in North Dakota, like, good things that are happening up in Grand Forks.
Yeah, it's fun to hear from a local group through hatching. That was kind of a neat thing. So I'm glad that you've done a lot of work with them, and I'm glad it's kind of coming together for Grand Forks schools. That sounds really amazing. So
Thank you.
all right, well, then we'll just wrap things up here a couple minutes early. And thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a good evening.
Thank you. See you.